Welcome to Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn of thejessicaflynn.com, and our show is on a mission to unleash local wisdom for widespread impact. We're committed to inspiring positive change and empowerment in our small corner of the world and beyond. Joining us today is someone who has taken her diagnosis and turned it into a declaration of strength and resilience. Caitlin Nagy is a mom, wife, best-selling author, creative director, entrepreneur, and has been living with young onset Parkinson's disease since 2014. Caitlin proudly identifies as a PD woman, a woman living with Parkinson's disease, and is on a mission to advocate for the way PD women are perceived and treated within the healthcare industry. So without further ado, welcome Caitlin. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm just so inspired by your story. I truly am. We've gotten the chance over the years to become great friends as well, and I really admire and respect not only your journey with Parkinson's, but your journey as a mom, as a professional. And so today we're going to talk about it all.
Awesome.
We're going to talk about it all. Yeah. So could you start by painting a picture for us of what life was like before 2014, before your diagnosis?
Okay, well, before I get started, I'd love to touch on one thing before we do.
Absolutely.
I'm going to look at, I want the audience to know that when you see me shaking right now, this is not because I'm nervous. I'm not nervous. I'm going through a medication drop. So this is what you experience when you have Parkinson's and you're trying to fight through a medication drop, which happens every 2 to 3 hours. I'm waiting for my medication to kick in. So this is what it looks like without medication. And in a few minutes, or maybe 20 minutes, fingers crossed, my medication will kick in and you'll probably see me twitching and moving a lot more. I'm totally fine. It's just a side effect of the meds.
Thank you for letting us know. And we'll talk more too about how we can be advocates and allies for individuals with Parkinson's.
Yeah, that's great. And then jumping back to your last question, how did I get started with kind of like where was I at before
Where were you at before this all started in your life?
Yeah, well, I was doing a lot more than I am now, shockingly. I think I was just in a much different headspace. I was really into enjoying life. I had a big trajectory of like a lot of goals that I wanted to achieve. I had just received a great promotion at work that I've been working for the last 10 years to get it from school to getting to different jobs and stuff like that. I was riding horses, I was doing art, I was singing and playing guitar and performing. And I was, traveling a lot with my husband. We were going out all the time, really, really social people. And that really changed when Parkinson's kicked in.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the things that had to be eliminated from your life almost immediately?
I would say right off the bat, I didn't know what to do at first, and I was very adamant on finding the fix, like disregarding the fact that this was a long-term disorder that I'd have to live with for the rest of my life. So I think I handled it. I would say the first little bit, I was definitely in denial a lot of the time. I wasn't ready to face it. And I really went at it from a sense of like, I'm going to heal this from a natural perspective. I'm going to heal my body first, and I'm going to be able to move out of this. And I think that's been my goal the whole time. But I would say I focused really a lot on eating healthy and really trying to get my body back in shape. I was really overweight at the time, and just kind of out of shape, not really focused on what I should be doing, more focused on work, which I have a tendency to fall to.
Which a lot of us tend to fall to. Yeah, until like life or your health literally stops you in your tracks.
Exactly, yeah.
So what were those kind of first feelings? So you were in denial. Yeah. And then you started, what can I control, when it was, your diet, your health, how you were fueling your body. Yeah. And shortly after your diagnosis, a few years into it, you and your husband became pregnant with your daughter, Bridget.
Yes. And a big piece of that was when I first was diagnosed, I was at that point where I wasn't married yet. We hadn't even got engaged. We just bought our first home. And so I was kind of like, okay, I need to get married still. I still want to have a baby. And those were all things I really wanted to do. And so I knew that meant it probably wouldn't be safe for me to have medication while I was pregnant. And so my goal was, okay, if I can get pregnant and be safe, then I'll start working on the medication side. Fine, I'll give in, kind of thing. And that really took a hold when I did get pregnant. My body changed so much. So I would say the one issue I had a lot of was weakness and and not having enough strength and not having enough motor function and cognition while I was pregnant to be able to function. And that was such a game changer for me. Like I really, really kind of took a step back going like, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? It was super scary being pregnant and all of a sudden your symptoms are getting worse and not knowing if you're gonna get better after you're pregnant. And being really scared about how am I gonna hold this baby? Like, look at my arms, right? How am I gonna hold her? How am I gonna nurse her? How am I gonna take care of her?
And new moms have all these anxieties.
You already
without
do,
the added
right?
Challenge. And,
right.
And how would you know what anxieties are new mom anxieties? What our anxieties are because of my young onset Parkinson's disease? And I imagine there aren't a lot of resources for not only young onset Parkinson's compared to the whole spectrum, but going through pregnancy.
Yes, absolutely. And so, like add that all of those emotions and feelings in, and it's just this huge ball of craziness.
Yes, a huge ball of craziness.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've gone through it, and I know your daughter, I know your family, and she's healthy and vibrant and beautiful.
Oh my gosh, yes, she's amazing.
And you are an incredible role model for not only her, but so many young women. So when did you are an advocate for women with Parkinson's and have worked with Parkinson's Canada. How did that all get started, and what called you to speak up and lead on this?
Right. Well, initially I mentioned I was in denial for the first 6 years. After I had my daughter, I decided that I would go on medication because things had gotten so bad I could hardly get across the room.
Wow.
So I started medication, and when it started to work, it took about 3 months for it to actually work, which was so frustrating.
And you don't know that 3 months is coming, so you're just
like, why isn't it working? What's going on? So when it finally started working, I was like, okay, well, I guess I have Parkinson's then. Like, I suppose I have to admit this, a defeat.
Right.
I should probably start going to a support group. And I did that through Parkinson Canada, and they were really great. Like they were really into finding out about how everybody felt in the group and what they could be doing from a marketing perspective to communicate better to what it's like to have our young onset Parkinson's. And I felt really charged with that, being from a marketing background and having the creative direction. I gave them some feedback on an ad that they were going to run, and they were like, hey, actually, would you mind speaking on this? And I was really nervous because I hadn't really told anybody about my diagnosis. I'd really hidden it from a lot of people.
And it had been 6 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the people that knew me knew that I had like a tremor in my hand, but they didn't know how bad it had actually gotten by this point. Like they didn't know that I couldn't walk across the room or like feed myself or put makeup on or anything like that.
Right.
So I had to really be okay with coming out about that, and I thought, oh my God, this would be a perfect opportunity for me to actually say like, hey, I've got it and it's okay, I'm gonna figure it out. And I just felt so charged with thinking like, I think ever since I've had this diagnosis, I really, really feel that there is a solution out there. There is a cure. We can figure it out, and I feel so charged with trying to figure that out for not only me, but for so many other people.
We need, leaders. You are acting, you're putting yourself in a role of what you needed when you're going through that. So we're going to talk about your own brand, but can you actually teach us a little bit about what Parkinson's is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Parkinson's basically is a dopamine deficiency. So you have a deficiency in your brain where you can't produce enough dopamine. Okay. The scary component and factor of Parkinson's is that it's a gradual progression disease, so it slowly gets worse over time. Slowly you begin to lose all your faculties, slowly you begin to lose all your motor function. And for people with young onset Parkinson's specifically, that would be in the age category of 30 to 50. That would be classified as young onset.
And you were right around that 30 mark.
Yeah. I was 31 when I was diagnosed. Sorry, one sec.
Yeah. No, we're learning so much, and even you saying yes to this opportunity, challenge, and showing what it's like, because you're also a mom, you are a professional, you have a life where you are navigating, a balance of medication, trying to live a healthy lifestyle, supplementing with, your own research and natural supplements, trying to make it work, but this is your reality. You're going through your days with these ups and downs. And so I'm so grateful that you are here showing up, and so that we can learn too how to support.
Totally. And I think the biggest lesson that I could say in all of this is I've learned that I have to be okay with being vulnerable, with exposing this side of myself that's like, I don't want anybody to see how weak I am or that I'm sick, or it's hard for us to show that. It's really hard to show that emotion, because it's also hard for us to look at as humans. Like, if to see somebody else suffering, to see someone else uncomfortable, maybe that it makes them uncomfortable where they can't really look at it, right?
Right.
And I think the biggest message I want to get across here is it's important for people with Parkinson's to feel like they can leave their home and you feel like you're still normal. You feel like you're still like a human. And when you go out on the street and people look at you or ask you if you're okay all the time, it can be really exhausting and really discouraging to want to leave your home.
Right.
And so my hope with this message today is that I know there's other people who have young onset Parkinson's, who have Parkinson's, or maybe they have MS, or they have a neurological disorder that they feel like they can't leave their house, they can't be social, they can't still have a life. Yes, you can. You can still be social. You can still have a life. Your life does not end when you have Parkinson's.
That's powerful. That is powerful. And what I've been so blessed to witness is in your journey of getting more vulnerable, getting more comfortable.
Yeah.
You've been fueled, plus you have this incredible career that you're still very active in creative direction.
Yeah.
And so marrying those strengths and making what may seem a weakness into a strength, taking that diagnosis and declaring that it is resilience and strength, and turning it into a brand.
Yeah.
So Pretty Dope Women is the brand that you've created to help other women with dopamine deficiencies, like Parkinson's, navigate this process so that they're not doing it alone.
Yes.
And creating this community and space that you needed and still need as you continue to go through your journey. So we're going to talk about that more during the break, but if you could kind of just give us your elevator pitch of why you started Pretty Dope Women.
I started Pretty Dope Women because I realized that I started to realize that I wasn't alone. So when I started to do the Parkinson's advocacy work and speak out about it, I had so many people reach out to me to say, like, oh my God, like, thank you so much for saying this. You have no idea how difficult this is. You have no idea how much I relate to this. And that was really what drove me forward. Like, I'm like, I could help other people in this. I feel like such a charge for that. Like, if there's a way to help other people, not only me in this, then I want to do that. And what at the time I was really struggling with was the fact that women's Parkinson's disease is so different from men. So, yeah.
Awesome. And so after the break, we're going to dive into how Parkinson's is so different from women, and more about how Pretty Dope Women exists to support other young women with young onset Parkinson's. So thank you, and we'll see you soon after the break. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn, and we are talking to Caitlin Nagy, an advocate for women with young onset Parkinson's disease. Caitlin, before the break, we were starting to talk about this beautiful brand that you have developed called Pretty Dope Women.
Yes.
Can you take us through what services, what kind of support you are building through that brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently kind of just in the process of like really really trying to figure out ways that I can support not only myself but other women within the PD community, and just and doing that by creating a community and a networking group so that together we can be more supportive of one another, more collaborative. I think there's a lot of bits that are happening for women in different areas of life and different areas of their diagnosis, where it's really beneficial for us all to be able to talk and commune together.
And with young onset, I mean, most of these women would be in their prime career and income earning years. So I imagine traversing that and motherhood and early diagnosis is a lot.
Yeah, and it is a lot, and it is hard to relate in a group setting scenario with general Parkinson's disease, because you're in a completely different demographic. So for me, as a woman who is in my early 40s and started to have this in my early 30s, I found it so hard to relate to people and to connect with other people that were going through this. And so what I would love to do is I would love to offer a platform and a space, whether it's a one-on-one conversation or it's a group conversation, where I can connect with other women who are going through this, who are my age, and we can support one another together.
Yeah, and you can maybe give them some guidance of, you know, what your journey has looked like, tools that you found, even little things like makeup.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
you know, how to hook a bra and basic tools that you have found that work well for you.
Exactly, and I think that there is a lot of people that are being diagnosed very quickly with young onset Parkinson's just in the last 5 years.
Wow.
The trajectory for the amount of diagnoses that people have received for young onset just in the last 5 years has doubled what is normal.
And do you know why? Like, are the doctors saying why this is happening?
So young onset Parkinson's generally could either be genetic, or it also could be environmental based. So it could be environmental factors. Environmental factors being like your actual environment, the air you're breathing in, the food you're ingesting, or it could be the stressors in your life experience. If you have post-traumatic stress disorder, if you've had any physical injuries to your neck, or your head, or things like that, those all play a factor in whether or not you develop young onset Parkinson's.
You're so knowledgeable in this space, and I think that's part of what makes you such an important advocate, is it's coming from a place of deep research and you know, looking for a cure. And it's not just an acceptance, it's how can we do better. So can you paint a picture of what does the landscape look like right now in Canada for the treatment of women with Parkinson's?
Yeah, that's
a big question.
That's a big question. And I will back that up with saying that women who have young onset Parkinson's are taking medication that has not been tested on women or really developed any advances since the 1960s.
Since the 1960s?
Yes. So the gold standard of medication for Parkinson's is Sinemet, levodopa carbidopa, and it is a false form of dopamine, like I forget the word, but like kind of like a man-made form of dopamine, essentially.
Synthetic.
Synthetic, yes, exactly. So it's a synthetic form of dopamine, but it hasn't been tested on women, and I really want to stress that factor, because
that's wild.
Women, and this is new research that's come out just in the last few years, our brains change in size by 25% every phase of our cycle. We have 4 phases within our cycle.
Our menstrual cycle.
Yes, yes, and our body is changing. Our brain is changing in size every phase of that.
25%?
25%.
Wow.
And so if you think about that, as we go through our monthly cycle, our body is doing different things. Our hormones are inflaming different areas of our brain.
Right.
And so we're taking a medication that doesn't collaborate with that.
Right.
And we're taking a medication that is, it's trying to force you to get motivated and move and do things, but there's certain phases in a woman's cycle where we actually need more rest and support, and more of an oxytocin hormone versus a dopamine hormone.
Right.
And I think that is where we really, really need to start looking, like really.
Yeah. It's about time. 1960s was quite a while ago. Sorry, Mom and Dad,
and
but
then
it was a little while ago.
I want to stress that, it's not just like a difference in medication, like the side effects that we have to endure because our brains don't match the medication is excruciating.
Wow. And what are some of those side effects?
So every month I go through a period where I can't get out of bed.
Right.
So I will be in bed for 3 to 4 days, and I will have so much apathy and so much fatigue that I can't physically function. It's hard for me to speak. It's hard for me to stay positive. It's hard for me to get dressed. It's hard for me to eat. And that happens right before I'm about to get my menstrual cycle every month. And then it also it started to happen more recently during ovulation.
Okay.
This is a very common symptom for women. It's about 80% of the women who have young onset Parkinson's globally experience side effects with their menstrual cycle.
80%.
80%. Now, the big thing here is that anytime you tell a doctor this, they'll tell you, well, that's normal. Any woman is going to have, things are going to get worse for any woman when they're getting their period. No, this is not normal. This is not okay with what we have to deal with, especially being a young onset Parkinson's. You're still in like the middle of your life. You're still in your career prime. You're trying to have babies. You're trying to make a career for yourself. You're trying to sustain that career and not lose it because you have a neurological disorder. And you're trying to save money for your retirement. You're not in retirement.
Right, where a lot of the previous, like when we think Parkinson's, people think older. And financially, often those populations would be kind of set, whereas you're in prime income earning years. You are very present with your young daughter. So it is, you need to function in a much more, you know, consistent and healthy way. And if we know that these cycles are happening, has there been, like, is anyone starting to look in this outside of North America?
Actually, there's just been one of the first study in the world that has opened up, a women's study, to monitor the effects of your menstrual cycle against the medication. And it literally just launched last month, which I'm really excited about. And I think they've actually opened it up globally for women to participate, but it's based out of Europe. And it's all monitored through an app called My Moves Matter.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so you monitor
another great example of branding and marketing.
Yes. So, so props to Rochelle Flanagan. She's based in the UK. She's a nutritionist with young onset Parkinson's. And she went ahead and developed this app and advocated for getting research to develop better treatment for women's Parkinson's.
And this is why we can't stay quiet in our homes. You can't hide away. We need you to tap into who you still are as a powerful, smart, connected, dynamic woman, now with maybe young onset Parkinson's, to lead the charge on making these changes. You have done some of your own research, and you've been tapping into some alternative therapies, including the power of meditation. Can you tell us about how your journey is going and how you discovered this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first off, I would say, the idea of me meditating with a Parkinson's brain, and I'm speaking to a lot of people here, is really daunting. Like, to be like, oh, I actually have to sit still and close my eyes for 20 minutes. I can't close my eyes for 5 minutes. So that was a little bit daunting to me, but I kept hearing about all of these amazing results that these people were having these miraculous healings by using this type of meditation system where they're able to move energy through their body and have a spontaneous remission. There's been amazing results. So I went to a retreat this past November with Joe Dispenza. He does a 1-week-long retreat. He does where all of these people, whether they have Parkinson's or any other type of ailment, are going. You meditate for a week, and you meditate for 5 to 6 hours a day. I did not think this was possible. But we were, you meditate for an hour and a half in the morning, and then midday, and then in the evening. I remember going there. I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Like, I can't do this. And
it would be hard, I think, for someone without Parkinson's. Never mind all the extra symptoms that you are dealing with.
But what's interesting is about these retreats is they actually do a medical study throughout these retreats, and they really bring in like a lot of different components to prove the results. But the results and the success rate of these meditations is a 70 to 80% success rate of spontaneous remission.
That's huge.
It's insane.
And they're doing, these retreats are also heavily documented. So they're doing lots of research there, correct? And so the idea is that you learn this technique, and then you practice this technique, and you continue to practice this technique. And what it does is it really allows your mind to become clear.
and for you to be able to shut off the autonomic nervous system that is causing the movement disruption. And it is the most amazing feeling when you can get into that state. I can go completely still. My mind can completely empty. And my girlfriends have sat there and watched me and gone like, oh my God, your body just goes completely still. It's incredible.
Wow. That's so inspiring.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that you will be on the panel of women that changes what life is like for women with young onset Parkinson's.
Thank you.
As we wrap up in our final couple of minutes, what are your hopes for not only your experience, but for the experience of other women in our age group who are experiencing young onset Parkinson's disease?
My hope is that you move through that discouragement and that feeling of you're not going to be able to get there, move past it and trust in your heart and know that there is life past this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what are you looking forward to in the next 6 months, 12 months of your healing journey?
I am looking forward to being more present with my daughter and my husband and really enjoying the moments in the present versus thinking about being in the future and the past.
Right. What a beautiful message. And I think that's a message we can all take with us no matter what whatever mountains we're currently tackling. And anything, you mentioned, walking down the street, being in a cafe. What are one or two things that members of the public and our community can do when they might see someone with Parkinson's in their community?
I think it's important to know that if you see somebody shaking and moving awkwardly, just be patient with them. Staring and making them feel uncomfortable and constantly asking if they're okay isn't necessarily a good thing. If we need help, we will ask for help.
Right.
Yeah.
You know how to do that well.
Yeah.
That's well versed. So
Yes.
just support and
Yeah.
love.
So just support us and stay calm. Stay
Beautiful.
calm and don't worry. We're okay.
You are more than okay. Caitlin, thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in. Our show, as you know, is on a mission to unleash wisdom like Caitlin's for widespread impact and to really make that positive change and ripple effect. Every episode, you can expect a journey into the heart of empowerment, whether it is in health, mental health, or education. And you can catch our next conversation on Rogers TV and on my YouTube channel at The Jessica Flynn. That is it for today on Empowered. I'm your host, Jess.